Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and a good day we got for you today. A very good day. Tim will be here second hour, and you can ask him anything, which is always fun because people will ask anything. But I don't know if you know this. I didn't know it until our guest, Simone Rizkallah, told me that the Second Vatican Council document Nostra Aetate was promulgated in October of 1965, which means it is 60 this year. Right now, it is 60 years old. And so we're going to take a little time to talk about that document and the impact of it. And if you don't know what Nostra Aetate is, it has to do with interfaith and interreligious dialogue. How does the church see other religions and other faiths? And so that's what we're, and you can see how that would be controversial because the church has had a lot to say about that over the years, and it kind of found a new way to say a lot of things at the Second Vatican Council. So when Nostra Aetate came out, groundbreaking, but slightly controversial. The controversy has maybe built more over the years. Many Catholics, leaders of other faiths, especially Jews and Muslims, really dug it. And that's an official reading. They dug it. But in important ways, it didn't sound like other documents, especially on Jews and Muslims. And so that's been a good source of the controversy. So as I said, here to help us understand Nostra Aetate is our very good friend, Simone Rizkallah, sometimes called Miss Riz. She was the director of program growth at Endow, where they helped women to engage the rich intellectual tradition of the church, which is probably where she first read Nostra Aetate. I don't know, maybe she first read it in school. But tell us what you're doing now, Simone Rizkallah.
Thank you, Cy. It's good to be back. I am now the director of Philos Catholic at the Philos Project, so I help Catholics reconnect to our Hebraic, our Jewish, and our Near Eastern Christian roots. So pretty lofty.
Yes, yes, pretty lofty, and I have to say, well timed, because I don't know. Sometimes you think that probably won't come up again. It comes up again. Whatever difficulties the church has had, they come back around again, and some of this has to do with Judaism, Jewishness, the Jewish people themselves. We have a lot of that. So I'm going to start you with the tough question. Okay?
Yes.
And we're going to do the whole thing and get the lowdown on Nostra Aetate, but I'm going to start with what I think is one of the tough questions people are asking about it. So, did the Second Vatican Council in this document, Nostra Aetate, change the Catholic Church's teaching on Jews and Judaism?
It did not, but I can see why people feel that way or think that it did, because the vibe shifted, and that's an official word, just like Doug.
Yeah, they dug it, and the vibe shifted. Okay, all right.
The vibe shifted in tone and in emphasis, but not in actual church teaching. So that can be confusing for the lay faithful, actually, especially when the vibe shift, again, official word vibe, pretty much from most of Christendom until 1965, the vibe was one day, and then post 1965, it wasn't. And that, as you know, as a student of church history, that, the Second Vatican Council happened like yesterday when we think about how slow the church operates. So, and I remember my church history professor telling me it takes about 200 years minimum to fully and fruitfully implement a council. So, it just happened. If I can say it hyperbolically that way.
Okay, if the vibe shifted, would it be fair to say it shifted to a less closed off, more open stance, a less confrontational and more embracing stance? And if that is the case, what is the problem with that? Why would that create a controversy?
Yeah, I think we have that similar controversy now when there's a confusion between like what catechesis is, which is like, what the catechism, and here's what we believe and what we must believe, and all the hard work of theology that the church has put into for a long time. And here it is packaged for us in 1992 with the catechism, which is also a new thing. But, theology is a science, and the beauty of our church is that doctrine develops. Jesus didn't just hand us the Bible. He didn't really hand us a set of doctrines and dogmas and said, here, off you go.
Yeah, right.
You
Right.
know,
Here's the list.
he's like, I will send you the Holy Spirit who will lead you into all truth and understanding, you know, and we believe in the church that that our doctrine and dogma is, and that has to do with faith and morals, is preserved from error, but that's a very narrow preservation, and that's a negative protection of the Holy Spirit. So this document is, and the development of doctrine and the clarification that it provided is more in line with the gospel. And that's actually what the document says, with the Spirit of God, with the Spirit of Christ, and the Spirit of love. So I sometimes get scandalized thinking, why was the vibe so bad for so long?
Right.
But then I think, on the other hand, for the vibe being so bad for centuries, with a lot of political implications and disasters, and yet the church found herself out of that with the Second Vatican Council with Nostra Aetate, and that's a miracle if you think about it. So,
well, if you're going to do 2,000 years of Catholic Jewish history, you're going to find everything from awful to wonderful. I mean, there's a reason why Christian Europe had millions of Jews in it. It wasn't because it was all bad. It wasn't because the story was all bad. I mean, the reason why and you correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the reason that the Holocaust is primarily a German act committed on Polish soil is Poland, the most Catholic country in the world, was actually had a reputation of being extremely welcoming to Jews for centuries. And so that's why they were there.
And then that changed.
Sure.
It did, and then it changed. I mean, and it was Pope St. John the 23rd who was a Vatican diplomat in the Balkans and helped save a lot of Jewish lives, where he thought we really need, the vibe has to shift, because how is it that Christian Germany, you know, some historians call it the most Christianized country in Europe, and Christian Europe
turned on the Jews.
Turned on the Jews. It didn't just happen overnight. It was centuries of anti-Judaic theology. And there's a really good book by Father Edward Flannery called The Agony of the Jews that is worth the read. But you can't read it if you're a fragile Christian. You have to be able to grapple with the fact that this was something that we got wrong for quite a long time.
Yes, fair enough. So, but look, if you look at this from 1,000 years from now, looking back, this is what it's going to look like. There was a Holocaust, and a minute later, the church changed her vibe on the Jews. Like you can't separate the fact that the Holocaust concluded in 1945, and the church made this statement in 1965. It's which in the life of the church is the blink of an eye. It's like for Catholics, that's like the fastest we can do anything is 20 years.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that, yes, global anti-Semitism is on the rise. National anti-Semitism in this country is on the rise. And even in some corners of the Catholic Church, it's on the rise. But the fact that you and I do not encounter on a daily basis anti-Semitic or anti-Judaic Catholics is because how well the church implemented Nostra Aetate, truly.
I got to be honest with you, Simone. I do encounter anti-Jewish Catholics, though. It's not unheard of. It's not unheard of, but it's a rare phenomenon coming up, I would say, but it's not unheard of. No, and it never went away. Yeah. No, I had a friend. She'd probably be 100 years old at this point. She passed a few decades ago, but she grew up in the Bronx when the Bronx was basically a Catholic enclave in many ways.
Right.
And she said she goes, when we were kids on Good Friday, we were coming home from school, we'd throw rocks at the synagogue. And she said it was almost like partly a joke, but partly like, it's Good Friday, time to get time to throw rocks at the synagogue. And you're horrified by that now, but we have to remember, look, this stuff has been ingrained for a long time. This idea that the Jews are out of place, or that they're responsible for the death of Christ or something.
Yeah, and that was something that Nostra Aetate really clarified, the collective guilt charge, the deicide charge. I mean, it clarified that in the Council of Trent, but, it needed to clarify it again and more clearly.
I gotta take a break, but today, often it's more frequent that we'll get a call complaining about what Nostra Aetate said about Muslims than it will be that we'll get a call complaining about what Nostra Aetate said about Jews. So I think there's a general unhappiness in some quarters that the church had anything nice to say about either group. But the Muslim thing is really bugging people. So can I ask you about that when we come back?
Sure.
Simone Rizkallah, our guest. We're talking, this is the 60th anniversary of Nostra Aetate, one of the most commented upon, very brief document. Look, read it in less than an hour. I don't know how long it'll take you, but it won't take you an hour. But still one of the most commented documents of the Second Vatican Council on Catholic relations with other religions. Right back to do more of that. And you're welcome to call 888-318-7884.
We're here for you. Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Magnificat. Published monthly, Magnificat features texts of daily Mass, prayers, articles, meditations, art commentaries, and more, in step with the liturgical rhythm of the Church, on the web at magnificat.com.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year was 1981. The FCC license to operate a satellite Earth station, the first ever given to an order of nuns, was granted to Our Lady of the Angels Monastery. Mother Angelica flips the switch and EWTN begins transmitting from Irondale, Alabama.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Simone Rizkallah, our guest. She's the director of the Philos Project. But tell us a little bit about that before we continue.
Yes, I'm the director of Philos Catholic, not the Philos Project.
Okay,
That's
Philos.
my boss.
Oh, I promoted you. What? Call him up and tell him. What's his name? He's out. I just
Luke Moon is the
You're out,
wonderful
Luke.
executive director
I
of the.
just fired you, dude.
He lets me direct the little Catholic
You're
corner
the-
at the Philos Project.
I gotcha.
So I'm very grateful for that. It's a great work.
What is the Philos Project?
So Philos Project, we do positive Christian engagement in the Near East. I mean, basically saving Western civilization every day, but it's just a
Big
little
job,
joke.
but somebody's got to
A
do
little
it.
joke. It's how I pep myself up. But basically, really, that our spiritual and cultural roots, our biblical values, are in the Near East, where Christianity began, and that to live out the gospel, more clearly and passionately, we need to reconnect with those roots.
All right, I'm going to say something really mean right now. And I
Sure.
want you to, the reason we got disconnected from those roots is Islam swept across the entire part of the world and excluded Catholics from that part of the world. Like, am I wrong about that?
No, in about 80 years, under a century, Islamic jihadi conquest took the Middle East and North Africa. That is a historical fact. And
Okay.
it's so I don't know if it's mean. It's just history. So yeah, hard times, and Islamism is growing. That's not going away. I'm taking a counterterrorism class right now, so I don't know if I told you that. And in a nutshell, things are not good with radicalization. And
Right.
now homegrown terrorism is a problem because we have all these online problems. So, I don't know if I don't want to scare anybody, but
Okay, but given that history, that here in the 7th century, this thing starts, that by the 8th century has devastated. And now I think it's fair to say these were not always healthy Christian communities. They had become unhealthy in many ways. So they were weak, but they were crushed by the Muslim invasions that rolled across North Africa and parts of Asia, and even into Europe. But so then we get the what Christians would call the defensive maneuver of the Crusades. But I don't want. I'm not trying to place blame. I'm not trying to do that, a whole relitigating of it. But
Right.
but there's a clear antagonism between Christianity and Islam century after century after century. Saint Francis tries to heal it. And so that's why that's why the story of St. Francis is so extraordinary, because virtually nobody else tried to heal it. And then we get Nostra Aetate, where it says they worship the same God we worship, and people are like, "What?"
I know. I have this argument with people all the time, and I think that I actually had to really grapple and struggle with this because, as you know, my family is Middle Eastern, and not that I don't have and didn't have wonderfully lovely, nonviolent, non-jihadi Muslim friends, and still do, but I can't say that I have like a great love for Islam, the religion of Islam, or that, that made me feel comfortable when the church talks about the three Abrahamic faiths. So I'll just vulnerably put that out there. But it's interesting because if we want to get fancy here, the wording in Nostra Aetate in the Latin can be argued, right? Is it like the one God or the God who is one? Like, do we worship this one God, all three of these Abrahamic religions, or is the document saying they worship the God who happens to also be one? So there is a little like fancy theological debate about that. But the reason why, and I'm sure this is an open secret, and I'm not the first one to talk about it. The reason why the document originally, John the 23rd's intention was it was just supposed to be about our relationship with Jews and Judaism, which is not even considered another religion from our perspective.
Right. From their perspective, maybe, but not from ours.
From their perspective, yes, but not from ours. Actually, it's sui generis, intrafamilial. John Paul II said it best when he said, in a certain sense, Judaism is not extrinsic but intrinsic to us. So whatever dialogue we have with Jews, it's a family dialogue. We cannot say the same thing about any other religion except Judaism, because Judaism is the foundation of Christianity and still is, which is another controversial thing. But with Islam, that question of Nostra Aetate really said, listen, we do worship the same God. Our ideas about him are different, but it is the same God. And this, another layer of this controversy, and I don't know if I'm becoming too convoluted here, is that with the rise of Islam, the question was like, is this another religion or is this a Christian heresy? So that kind of just adds more.
I think St. John Damascene thought it was a Christian heresy, if I remember right, and that has been the case. Some have referred to Islam as a form of Judaism, as a twisted form of Judaism.
You could say that. I mean, because Muhammad took elements of Christianity and Judaism heavily. There are a lot of parallels there.
So is it problematic what the document says about Muslims, or is it not problematic?
I mean, I don't think it needs to be problematic, but I think that listen, the big question and debate, and I think more people should have this conversation. I think we should have it with our Muslim friends. And I was talking to one of my Muslim friends about this because she is a Muslim woman fighting anti-Semitism, which is not really popular in a lot of the Islamic world.
Breaking news here, Simone. Thank you for breaking this story for us.
Yeah, and she's very blunt and very honest, and is not shy about saying most mosques are preaching anti-Semitism in the United States. So she's very real with it. And I asked her, do you have a crisis of faith about this? So should Christians look at Muslims as like the peaceful Muslims, as they're restoring Islam to its true peacefulness, or are these peaceful Muslims just bad Muslims because that's what Islamists seem to think?
Yeah. And Christians always try to answer that question, and none of us are qualified to answer that question. Like we have to kind of stand on the outside and go, we don't know what. Yeah. It's not for us to say what the true Islam is.
Yeah, and I truly agreed, and I think that Pope Benedict in his Regensburg address, calling for Muslim scholars and Islamic community to find again its, go back to have another renaissance in its reason and its engagement with philosophy. I mean, why argue about this question when we can just start to re-engage our Muslim friends and scholars on the value of philosophy and reason? That to me seems to be where the fruitfulness could be and the Spirit of God could be. So I don't know, follow Benedict XVI. He had a good.
That's always good advice.
Good advice.
So tell me, what else is in Nostra Aetate? Nostra Aetate coming exactly 20 years after the end of the Holocaust,
Right.
which did happen, right? You and I are both agreed on that. The Holocaust happened. Okay.
Yes.
I swear you got to ask that nowadays.
I know.
It's crazy, but you got to ask that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew what your answer was going to be, but like
weird times. Just when you think it can't get any weirder.
Yeah.
Just
So the Holocaust, which did actually happen and targeted Jews in an absolutely unique way, ended 20 years before Nostra Aetate. John the 23rd, who was the first pope of the council, wanted the document to be on relations with Jews.
Yep.
Because I'm sure because of his own experiences in the Second World War.
Yes. Yeah. He was saving Jews. He was a Vatican diplomat. He saw firsthand. There's something that shifts, and it's one thing to say, Jewish Catholic relations, and that's a good idea. Peace is good. It's another to be literally saving the lives of Jews. That and I think this is why John Paul II did so much for Jewish Catholic relations, because he came from Wadowice, which was a Jewish populated town in Poland, and Pope Benedict also being a German. I mean, he played on a Jewish soccer team, and, his friends were Jews in growing up, and he lived through Nazi and then later communist occupation. Pope Benedict, the same, had to avoid being part of Hitler Youth. So when this is your actual life experience, it's not just a document that sounds nice. This is real people and real lives.
So why did the document get expanded? It not only includes reference to Muslims, but to other world religions. Why did it get expanded like that?
The contentiousness. So it also includes discussion of Hindus and Muslims, and it says something very, very good. It says, listen, unity, charity, those are important things, and that the Catholic Church in no way rejects the rays of truth that are evident in other non-Christian religions. So it affirms what we always have affirmed, which is the true, the good, the beautiful. And those rays of truth are, whether they recognize it or not, rays of light from Jesus, who is the ultimate way, the truth, and the life, which the document also affirms the truth of that. So again, it's sometimes the word ecumenism or interreligious dialogue kind of turns some people off, but really all it's saying is these are bridges by which we can more effectively evangelize, and if not evangelize, we can at least build what's good and true in society together based on these shared morals.
888-318-7884 is the number if you'd like to talk about the document Nostra Aetate. I'll tell you why I think sometimes people reject Nostra Aetate is because some of the people who are defenders of the document pretend or have the pretense that what it really is about is that there are all these different ways to God and Christianity is just one among them. That there's a kind of exaggerated defense of the document that creates an exaggerated offense at the document.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's the shortest document of the council. It'll take you 15 minutes to read it.
Oh man, it was like 45 for me. You're a way faster reader than me.
Because you've got those fancy highlighters side. But really, I mean, it so clearly is not a religiously indifferent or relativistic document by any stretch of the imagination. So
I do think one cure for some of the upset is read the document. I mean, sometimes I don't like to say read the documents because the documents of the church can be really long. But if you're smart like Simone, 15 minutes it will take. If you're more of a my level of scholar, 45 minutes. But you'll find out it's not quite the burn down Catholicism that some people make it out to be.
Well, I feel that way about all the, Vatican II haters. Like, did you really read it? Have you really read it? I don't know.
Yeah, because when that's right. And I think to me, it is the sentences on Islam are pretty straightforward. I realize that people have that we turn it into something convoluted, but as you're reading the document, they're just being solicitous of Muslim people. They're not saying Muslim people are bad because Muslim people are not bad. They're saying they're people who are doing their best to worship the one God.
Yeah.
They're not saying don't become Christian. They're not that. They're just saying. All right, so we're going to come back. We don't want to take some calls. Let's talk about. You want to talk about Judaism and Christianity? You want to talk about Islam and Christianity? You want to talk about Hinduism? Whatever. You want to talk about Nostra Aetate? 888-318-7884. What is the Catholic Church? Everybody seems to have an opinion, but the church never quite fits into the boxes people try to make for it. In The Faith Unboxed, author Andrew Petiprin looks at some of the most common boxes people put the Catholic Church in and explains why they don't fit. In doing so, he brings us closer to what the church really is, the institution founded by... All right, we forgot that we got this whole new thing we're going to do where we're going to talk to the people online at the breaks, and then we went to the commercial on the last break, and I completely didn't even think about it. So, Simone, you are the very first guest who we've ever had talking over the commercials. Yeah, you're numero uno. So
I'm so excited.
How am I doing with this interview? Am I blowing it?
I think it's not at all. I'll for real answer your question that you asked that I side answered, by the way.
About why did it? I was wondering about that. I lost it. Oh, you tricked me. Because I asked you, why did the document go from being about Jews to being about everybody?
I will answer it. I will answer it for real. I will answer it for real.
All right.
I know.
And everybody who's listening online should know in a few minutes, I'm also going to, well, look, the lines are starting to fill up, so that's good. I'm going to totally switch gears with Simone for a minute to talk about something that makes her very, very, very happy. And that is the church is about to get a new saint this month. As a matter of fact, like 5 days? 5 or 6 days?
19. Yeah, 3 days.
Oh, 3 days. 3 days. Church gets a new saint.
3 days. Yeah.
And he's one of Simone's favorite ethnic groups.
In yours too. You love that lamb. You love the lamb.
Armenians, right. Yeah. We're getting an Armenian saint.
That's right. That's right. So
we'll talk about that. That's going to happen. That happens at the Vatican, right? You don't have it's the beatifications that happen in the local diocese. Oh wait, I lost Simone.
Nella Roma.
Oh, in Roma. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I don't know. Nostra Aetate, it's 60 years old this month. I have to say, like, some of the most important things in the whole history of the church happened 60 years ago right now. Like, we were in the middle. No, 65 would have been the last year of the council, right? 65?
Right.
65 was the last.
65.
So this year, so out comes this document, Nostra Aetate. You say Nostra Aetate, I noticed.
Nostra.
Oh, Nostra? Oh, I thought you... Okay. All right.
If I did, I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were showing me up, just showing me how bad because I can't pronounce Latin. I don't know Latin.
There's no pronunciation with Latin. That's the.
Oh, is that the fun of Latin? You can say it however you want.
There's actually no pronunciation. People who do it with like an Italian accent or Spanish, it's not. That's fake. That's fake news.
Okay, but still, it sounds good though. Everything sounds better with an Italian accent. Okay, Nostra Aetate. I realized at the break because you pointed this out to me. I asked you a question that you didn't answer. So every single line is full now except one, 888-318-7884. We're talking about relations between Catholics and other religions because that's what the church spoke about 60 years ago this month with the document Nostra Aetate. And I knew you would correct me. You can pronounce it any way you want. That's not right. Okay, so I asked you if John the 23rd, who was the Pope when the council started, he was not still the Pope when the council ended. He had died. But if he wanted a document just on relations with Jews, why did the document become about relations with everybody?
So it was a concession because there was pressure from Middle Eastern Christians that this document was a low-key way of supporting the state of Israel, which again, we have normalized relations with Israel. John Paul II normalized our relations with Israel. But at the time, it was so controversial that Middle Eastern Christians were freaking out about it.
I didn't. That's an interesting history. Yeah. So this is a fraught time where this came out. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I know I want to ask you about the new Armenian saint that we are about to get.
Yes.
But I realize I've got people that have actually waited a while on the phone. So let's take a couple calls about our topic. But Simone is Egyptian, Armenian, American, and what else? Throw something else in there.
That's enough.
That's enough?
Yeah. Egyptian, Armenian, Californian, American.
Okay. And so the fact that we're getting a new Armenian saint, I do want to ask her about, because I don't have that many Armenian friends. I want to, I just don't. But John in Oklahoma, you are starting us off on our conversation about the 60th anniversary of the Vatican II document Nostra Aetate. John, go ahead with your question for Simone.
All right. Now, here's my thing when it comes to trying to have a good friendly connection with the Jewish people. And it makes it kind of hard when you see how the Jewish community, and primarily the Hasidic Jews, mistreat the Catholic community, not only, here in the United States, but all around the world, and specifically in Israel. I mean, there's been a number of cases where Catholics are being persecuted in ways over there by the Jewish community, where they're being beaten, their houses are being set on fire. Just recently, there was a settlement of, I believe it was Catholic Christians in Israel that if I'm not mistaken, the Hasidic Jews were actually burning their land and stuff to try to get them out of the way.
Simone?
And how do you kind of get over that?
Yeah, well, I think one thing to keep in mind is we are not called to have a relationship with the Jewish people as an abstraction. We're called to have relationships to specific individuals and to people. So if listen, I would even argue with your word persecution, because if we're going to again, I don't like playing comparison games, but as Sai mentioned, I mean, Islamist, again, different than Muslim, but Islamist persecution of Christians is so spread, both in this country, in the Near East, and in non-Arab.
Oh, Simone, we're sorry, we had an audio problem there for a second. So you were saying Islamist, not Muslim persecution.
Not Muslims, but Islamists, right?
Yes.
Is so vast. There's, if you go to Open Doors or Voice of the Martyrs or For the Martyrs, or go to any of the Global Christian Relief, you go to any of those and you look on a world map, you see how many countries, Nigeria, for example, 500,000 people killed. So I'm not dismissing, Jewish discrimination or, mistreatment of certain Christians, but the comparison is so low. So it's strange to me that there are so many Christians who are preoccupied with these rare stories, rare incidences, and then completely indifferent or fine with the fact that the real problem when it comes to persecution of Christians is Islamism. So that's, and as someone whose family came from Muslim countries, the Jews were not the problem. And again, we're not called to be in relationship with the Jewish people as an abstraction. We're called to be in relationship with the particular Jewish people that God has put in our midst. And if we're following the directive of our Holy Fathers and the Church, this is, again, a conversation, a dialogue that we're supposed to be having, and we're supposed to consider the Jewish people as part of our family, regardless of what they think and how they treat us.
Can't go back to John because he dropped, but thank you very much for the question, John. You're welcome to call back. We do have another line open, 888-318-7884. Max is in San Antonio, Texas, listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Glad to have you, Max. Go ahead with your question for Simone.
Hi, Thanks for having me. I've really been enjoying everything Simone has to say.
Oh, wonderful.
I have a question about the role of the Vatican during the Holocaust. I don't know how much facts we can give. I understand that the Vatican did, obviously, if it were black and white, the Vatican is against the Holocaust. But there are some times when there was inaction, at least what is known in mainstream history or whatever. And I would like to know, what can I know about that, and what is the reasoning, maybe more importantly, for what the Vatican did in that time. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question? When you say the Vatican did, are you talking about Pius XII in Rome, or just bishops across Europe?
Yeah, so I mean the Vatican specifically. I understand not individual priests, because I do know of cases where individual priests spoke out. I mean, I know many, obviously, many individual priests had heroic deaths in concentration camps, even defending individual Jews. But I really do mean the Vatican diplomatically. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, one of my best friends, a priest, saved her grandfather and actually taught him Hebrew and helped celebrate the Jewish holidays during the Holocaust, which is really, really beautiful. I bias, I'll say that. I think the thing to keep in mind is, of course, the Vatican. Google Edith Stein's letter to Pope. Only a page, so it could take you out of 15 minutes or an hour, depends. But read the way that she warns the Vatican.
We're having a sound problem, Simone. I don't know.
Oh, no.
I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but your mic keeps cutting out on us. So
Oh, no.
you were talking about Edith Stein writing to Pope Pius XII to warn about what?
Yeah, to warn about National Socialism and the Nazi movement growing. And so it is true that the Church and the Vatican was very slow to respond to the rise of Nazism, and was duped by Hitler and trying to, the Concordat and all of that. But in terms of Pius XII and the heroic virtue of priests and religious, that is also part of the story. So, I Google Edith Stein's letter to the Pope, and I hope that's helpful in some way. Sorry about the microphone cutting out.
I think I can be helpful to you too, Max. On October 27th, our first hour, we're going to discuss a new history of Pope Pius XII that's coming out. So join us on that. I think that's a Monday, right? Hour 1 on Monday. And we look forward to a robust discussion about what was Pius XII really up to, what really happened during the Second World War. I think you'll find that interesting and helpful. I got to go to a break, and then I'm going to get to all these calls with Simone Riscala, and we're going to find out who is the newest saint coming up for the Catholic Church, this Armenian saint. We'll talk about that with Simone Riscala when we come back right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, this is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Keep your dial tuned to Catholic Answers Live.
In Morse code, the sequence SOS is a distress call. It's been said that it stands for Save Our Souls. Well, right now our world is in big trouble, and we're putting out an SOS call for help. Will you answer that call? St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, has hundreds of teams who share the good news with souls who don't know Jesus. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to get involved.
Hi, this is Father Mike Schmitz. I invite you to listen to Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year here on EWTN Radio. On Bible in a Year, we're reading all the way from Genesis through Revelation, plus time for explanations and reflections to help us go deeper into God's Word, encounter His voice, and learn how to live life through the lens of Scripture.
Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz, tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. If you're listening online, we had to cut to the commercial because Simone's microphone was having trouble, but we'll try to come back shortly. But we're talking about Nostra Aetate. Of course, that's going to raise questions of relations between Jews and Christians, because that was the original focus of the document that came out 60 years ago this month at the Second Vatican Council. The document was expanded to include other religions, most notably, probably for most Catholics, Islam. And it's a controversial document, but also a document that has been very, very well received and certainly has changed, to use Simone's theological term, the vibe in the Catholic Church regarding the Jewish people. And it was a vibe that needed to change. We were in bad habits in many ways. And there's nothing wrong with saying that we needed to change the habitual way we treated Jews, spoke about Jews, even prayed for Jews. Not all of that was benign. So that's okay. We're grown-ups. We can deal with that. So I say all of that to set up the calls that we have coming up, and I want to get to them. But Simone, I'm going to give you a minute to plug your new favorite saint.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, my new favorite saint, canonized in 3 days on October 19th in Rome by our new Pope Leo. He will be Saint Ignatius Melonian, and he's an Armenian saint from Mardin, Turkey, which is actually where my family's from. So he has to be my new favorite saint. But he died in the Armenian genocide, and when he was asked to convert to Islam and renounce Christ, he said no. And he also had to watch Father Haig, one of our wonderful young Armenian Catholic priests, told me this. Imagine having to watch 400 of your parishioners die in front of you, and then long for martyrdom yourself to be able to join the King of Kings as Jesus for him. Yeah. So that's the plug for this new Armenian Catholic saint. Super excited. And all the Armenians from Mardin, Turkey are extra proud and happy. But I have family members who died in the Syrian death march in Mardin. So hits close to home.
The very first Catholic country in the world, the problem is not a powerhouse country, so often pushed around, and even Armenia's friends are often not very helpful friends when the difficulties come. So I'm glad. Armenia's
friends at Catholic Answers are helpful. So thank you, Catholic Answers, for always talking about
first Catholic country on earth. Like, we're Catholic Answers. I mean, we better say something good about them. But this is wonderful news. The church will have a new saint, and pay attention to that. Pope Leo will canonize the new saint on the 19th of this month. Back to the phones I go. Jason's in Pittsburgh listening to EWTN on channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Jason, go ahead with your question.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm a little under the weather.
I'm sorry you are too, Jason.
Yeah. So my question is that we talk about Jews being the family, but coming from an apologetic background, and even with Islam, I don't believe the Jews worship the same God that we do. Jesus says in the Gospels that whoever rejects me rejects the one that sent me. So how can we call them family when we're not serving even the same God? And then we go to Islam, and I've read the Quran. I know what the description of, to me, the real Muslims are Al-Qaeda, ISIS, because they're being obedient to what the Quran says. Throughout Islam, you have those who do not accept, behead them.
Okay, let's start with the first one. If it's all right with you, Jason, we'll start with Jews. So, Simone, you say Jews are part of the family as far as Christians, certainly as far as Catholic Christians are concerned. Jason says, but they reject Christ, and how can they be part of the family?
Yeah, well, it's not really what Simone says. I encourage you to read St. Paul, Romans chapters 9 to 11 is somewhere to really read and study and meditate on. And then also, if we don't accept that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is the God that Jesus as a very faithful Jew worshiped, then we certainly can't believe that he is the Messiah who fulfilled and who is God. So if you really throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you go down that, I would say respectfully and kindly, that heretical track. Christianity is the fulfillment of the Jewish religion. So if you throw out the Jewish God, you throw out Christianity.
And then Jason also asked about Islam, but I don't know if you had more that you wanted to say about Islam, or if you've said what.
I would say that, again, maybe this is too pastoral and preachy, but I would focus on your personal vocation. I mean, maybe you're an intelligence agent and you have to fight Islamism and you're in a counterterrorism unit. But if not, if you're a lay Catholic who engages Muslims, the Muslims that I work with wish that they had a document like Nostra Aetate on the Jews. They admire it. They love that we have documents that we have to pay attention to. So those are the kinds of Muslims that Nostra Aetate is talking about, where we can build the true, the good, and the beautiful. And I think it doesn't really promote the spirit of God, which is also something the document says, when we don't build those bridges and find commonality. Yeah.
Jason, I'm going to leave that there because we do have quite a few people on the line. Let's go to Peter out here in California watching on YouTube. Peter, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Simone.
Hi, Simone and Sai. Thank you so much.
Hi, Peter.
I wanted to know, does the incarnation of Jesus resolve the issue of arbitrariness of the chosen people of the Jewish community? Yeah.
What is the issue that it seems odd that God would have to? I almost made that old poem, but it seems wrong for God to be so specific in choosing one particular people as His own chosen people. I'm not sure.
Exactly, and my thought. And my thought was that the incarnation, Jesus had to have been born into some family, and so biologically it necessitated and resolves that issue. But that was my thinking.
Ah, okay.
But I wanted to get...
Yeah, if I'm understanding you correctly, yes, the incarnation is the scandal of particularity extraordinaire. Pope Benedict, in his fine little book, all his books are fine and perfect, What It Means to Be a Christian, talks about this in his second sermon, where he says, it's scandalous to us that Jesus would be born in this obscure town and with this obscure tribe, and has a fingerprint and a face and a facial expression. And so God chooses, and He operates like this in our own life to reach us through particularity. So if that's what you're saying, I agree with you.
And we're certainly we wouldn't have been able to make any sense of Jesus as a person without the Jews as a people. It doesn't.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
He comes as a particular person to a particular people, and certainly their having been chosen by God is related to His desire to save the world through them.
And that chosenness is still, this is something the church teaches, and this is something for those who really like medieval theologians like St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas also taught, again, this is not as Father Thomas Joseph White says, who's the rector of the Angelicum in Rome, Nostra Aetate is not some liberal progressive document. St. Thomas Aquinas also spoke and taught the irrevocable election and the permanent presence of the Jewish people in salvation history. So you can, take it up with St. Thomas if you don't like it, but it is what our church teaches.
I don't think Peter certainly was not saying he doesn't like it, but I know what you mean.
No,
right.
I wasn't talking to Peter. Yeah. No, just to the abstract audience out there.
All right, Peter, thank you. As I said, a short time, lots of calls. Let's go to Joseph in Illinois. Joseph, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, Simone. I was calling, I guess, for I have a multi-part question, I guess, but the original, since I've been listening to you, it's kind of evolved a little bit. But so I was calling because I wanted to find out, the church has been historically what's been called supersessionism, has expressed that theological view, which, you mentioned Thomas Aquinas. He actually has been referenced as one of the fatherheads of supersessionism. And, I know that with the Second Vatican Council, there was clarification and things have evolved, and maybe the church took a softer stance, if you will. I just didn't know exactly what that stance would be called, or if it is that also, I just you mentioned earlier about, the Muslim persecution of Christians in response to the question in regards to Jewish persecution of Christians. But I also wanted to remind you that the Muslims like Boko Haram who behead Christians and, they're not really an organized first world political country, for example, like Israel, where they did blow up a church in Taiba and they shot a mother and daughter Christians in front of a church. Meanwhile, we visit the Holy Lands and we get potentially spat on by Jewish people in the streets for simply being Christian, or if they see crosses, and their government writes it off like, oh, that's just an old tradition. I think it's uncharitable to say that, or to defer and say it's only a Muslim problem when the Jewish problem is, I would say, maybe a little bit more not nefarious, but it's a little more shrouded and covered up as more acceptable. It's what it feels like as a Christian, as a Catholic specifically. But yeah, those are my questions, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that anytime one human being is violent to another human being, it's somehow acceptable. And that's why I was kind of hesitant to bring up. But keeping in mind over 50 Muslim majority countries, and there's only one Jewish state. So I find it interesting that so many Catholics tend to focus on the Jews spitting on, and again, this is not most Jews or most Israelis. This is a certain sect of Jews that most Israelis and Jews don't like that they do that. So again, it's just strange to me that there is this preoccupation with the state of Israel. Again, in no way dismissing the serious things that any government promotes or dismisses or does. But first, I would also fact check. There's a lot of fake news, especially about Taiwan. But then also, again, there are over 50 Muslim majority countries in persecution. So how come we're not hearing more, again, from the Catholic community sometimes about that? Why was there so much emphasis? And this kind of hurt my feelings as an Armenian. 120,000 Armenians were starved to death by Islamist Azerbaijan and Turkey, and then were forced and ethnically cleansed out of our ancient homeland. But you never really heard about that. But you always heard about Gaza and Holy Family Church. Again, we need to support our Catholic brothers and sisters in Gaza, but how come there wasn't the same kind of passion and concern for the Armenians?
Joseph, I got to leave it there. And Pat, who is on the line, if you want to hang on, we'll hold your question for the next hour because Tim Staples is here and it's Ask Me Anything. So we will get you on there. But unfortunately, I am coming up at the end of the show, so I will not be able to take more calls right now or to have a conversation that I kind of think would have been really helpful, Joseph, and I apologize for that. Simone Ruscala has been our guest. Tell us about should I say Philos or Philos project?
Philos.
Philos. Tell me about the Philos project.
The Philos Project. Yeah, so check us out, the Philos Project. We have a special project called Philos Catholic. If you'd like to sign the Coalition of Catholics Against Anti-Semitism statement, you can. If you want to download cool handouts on the 23 Eastern Catholic churches, or look at the Eastern and Western Church Fathers, check out the Beyond Rome podcast. I would love for you to tap into your Hebraic and Jewish roots and check out our conferences as well.
If you are interested in the document we've been talking about, 60 years old this month, Nostra Aetate, all you have to do is type in Nostra Aetate into your, something even remotely like that. Your computer will find it, and you can read it in, I'm going to go 30 minutes. I'm going to say 30 minutes.
Fair.
I'm going to compromise between Simone's speed at reading and mine. It's worth reading because it is a controversial document, and you can maybe settle some of that controversy to yourself by just reading what the church actually had to say. Simone Ruscala, it is always a delight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cy. Likewise.
All right, Tim Staples coming up right after this on Catholic Answers Live.